Hey, welcome back to the final part on how to do procedural generation in GDevelop. And this is what we have so far. We have a world that's being procedurally generated. We have a landscape, we have some caves, we can travel around, explore. Every time we reset, we get a completely different result. We have a seed being generated so we can see which one we're at. We can break tiles, right? You can dig all the way to the cave so that we can explore what lies beneath the surface. And this is pretty cool. I like this color scheme. I don't know why. It gives me a very cartoony feel. It reminds me of games like Trove. Anyways, so like here, I can't make the jump, so we can build. And now we made it across. Then we break down this wall. We build some more, right? So we can travel around. But now the world is a bit barren, especially here. Like there needs to be trees and flowers and all that stuff, right? Because otherwise, it just I don't know. It looks too bland. I mean, we need stuff like that everywhere to make the world pop out more. But I'm gonna give you the example of the landscape, and then you can apply this to pretty much anywhere else in the game that you want to put, stuff, basically. This works for everything. It doesn't just work for decorations. It works for the treasure chests, everything, right? So I made two extra tiles. One that's like flowers. It's just a little bush with some flowers, and they're just decoration. They don't have any sort of collision. They don't have the platform. I made a tree that looks like a popsicle, um, and that's what we're gonna generate on our landscape. Now, to start this whole thing, we're going to add a new object. We're going to go to our sprites, and we're going to call this one checker. And we're going to create with Piskel. And we're going to grab, well, first of all, we need to make sure it's the right size. So height and width. Height? I don't know what I'm saying. Height and width. Uh, Not 32. Jeez. Focus, man. We're using 64s by 64, so 64 by 64. There we go. Now, we're going to use our paint buckets, and we're going to give it a color. It doesn't really matter, because this is going to be disappear very quick. It's going to be new. Hit save. And there we go. We have our checker. Now, just to be sure that we don't collide against anything that we don't want, we're going to go into Edit Collision Mask, and we're going to use a custom one, and we're going to offset the edge. So on the zeros, we're going to put a 4, like that, 4, 4, 4, 4. And on the 60s, we're going to change the 64 for 60. Oh my god. I have the window open because it's hot, and I can just hear the kids screaming outside. I really hope the mic isn't like picking that stuff up. There we go. So now we basically made the exact same mask, right? Wait, did I screw this up? Did I goof it up? I don't think I did. No, basically we made the exact same mask, but smaller. I can't see the points. Oh, there we go. There's 1 point. There's 1 point. Yeah, I didn't screw it up. It is like this. So we made the exact same mask, but a bit smaller. I think. There we go. There's one there. There's one there. So everything else should be fine. Okay, cool. So now we close and apply. And the reason why we changed that is because we're going to check for collision. And I don't want Because when you create a 64 block next to a 64 block, they're touching. So if you check for collision, even if they're not directly on top of each other, they're still going to check as in collision, right? Because they're rubbing elbows, basically. So we gave it a little wiggle room so that they're no longer rubbing elbows, right? So this way they don't interfere with each other. Now we're going to go to our events and we're going to populate the surface. And to do so, we're going to go to our landscape. There we go, generate landscape. And every time we create a grass tile, so we're going to copy paste the grass tile and we're going to create the grass tile and we're going to create the checker at the same position but one tile up. How can I make this? Do I create it here or do I create it like on top of the grass? Can I make it? Variable 64 times origin Y. I think we change this to something like to grass. We're going to generate it on the grass tile Y minus 64. So we're going to generate on top of the grass minus 64, so it's right on top. Because we want to check if there's anything, if there's a tile on top of the grass tile, right? So if there's not, we're going to generate something. But if there is, we're going to delete the checker. Right? That's the point. Let's see if this works. So just like this, yes, it works perfectly. This is exactly what we want. So now we need to do like this. I should have thought this one a bit better before starting to record, but you know, live a little. Wait, how can I do this better? That is how you should be thinking all the time. Like, how can I improve my code? We can put it here, actually. Yeah, let's try it. Let's try putting it here. So if check, let's check for collision. So collision. Object. Checker. Object to check against. Grass. Okay. Now, if where is it? If it's in collision with grass, delete object. Checker. Okay. So if the checker is in collision with the grass tile, then we delete the checker. If I'm still trying to think if this is a good idea to have here. No. I'm going to bring it all the way there. Let's copy paste. I said, where did this paste to? There you go. See, because I still had the other one selected. There you go. So now we're going to do, if checker is not in collision with grass, Then we're gonna run an object variable, object number variable on the checker. So if the checker is not in collision with grass, then it runs a variable spawn. And we're going to set it to random in range between 1 and 3. Like that. Now we're going to create a sub event. And we're going to say if the object number variable, there we go. The object checker, if the variable spawn, if it equals to 1, if it equals to 1, then we delete the spawner. Now we're going to copy paste this twice, and we're going to say if it equals 2. There we go. If it equals 2, or if it equals 3. And you can pretty much see where this is going. So create object. If it equals 2, it's going to create the object flower. Like that. At the X position of checker, checker X, and checker dot Y. Because the flower is 64 by 64, so there's no need for changing anything. I lost track of this. There we go. So we're gonna create first. You make sure that you're creating first and deleting the checker second, right? Because if you delete the checker first, then you try to create the flower at the checker position, but then it's like the checker no longer exists. So GDevelop's like, what do I do with this? And then he sends it to position 0, 0 on the scene. If it's number 3, then we're gonna copy paste our create. We're gonna put it there, and we're gonna change the flower for the tree, like that. But the tree is bigger. So the tree is a 64 by 32. So we need to account for that. It's not there. So it needs to be at the checkers Y minus 64, because it's twice as high, right? Minus 64. Because the tree is like twice as high, you need to aim twice as high for the spawner. And this should work. Let's see if it does. It does. Check that out. How cool. So now we have a world that actually gets populated. Wait, what happened there? Why is there a thing there? I don't get it. What's that? What's that white thing? Wait, is that the checker? Why did we? Oh, I know exactly what's happening. Okay. It's because it's being created as the world is being generated. But so it's creating a block, right? And then the block creates a checker on top. And it's like, well, there's nothing here, so I'm going to create a tree. But then we move on to the next block. So it creates a block on top of that block. And now the tree is behind the grass block. So what needs to happen is we need to wait until all of this stuff is done. All until the landscape is done generating. And to do that, we go like this. We're going to create an event. I'm going to bring it there. I'm going to put these underneath. Like that. And now I'm going to say if scene boolean. Scene boolean. And the variable is going to be finished. You know, I like to be precise, so I'm going to make landscape finished. It's a mouthful, but it's easy to remember because it's exactly what it is. Right. If landscape's finished equals true, then we do all of this stuff. And the way we check this is on our landscape. Is this the landscape? World generation landscape. Okay. So the landscape becomes finished when the XU is greater than this variable, right? Yeah. Because here we tell it to stop creating. This one. So we're going to put our boolean there. So scene boolean. What's the boolean called? Well, exactly what it is. When the landscape is finished. Right? It's a mouthful, but it saves the time to go back and forward, and we set it to true. You should see my variables. They're all like this. They're always like very hyper specific to what they do. Anyway, let's try it. So now they're all blue, and then bang. It didn't work. No, it did work. It did work. I was just looking at the wrong thing. Okay. So now what's happening is it is working, but it's working exactly at the same time. So we need to do this for every object. So we're going to add a for each object. When you have multiples of whatever it is happening at the exact same time, you need to specify that you want this stuff to happen for each one of those objects. Because otherwise, it all happens at once. So GDevelop's like, the conditions have been met once, right? They were all met at the exact same time. So I did the one thing, right? So I'm done now. You need to tell it, no. You need to do it for every single one of them. So on the object, we're going to put checker. So you want to repeat for each object or each instance of checker. And then we want to put this stuff underneath that one. Okay. And now it should work perfectly. Bang. There we go. Check that out. Now we have, and you know it's working because there's some spaces where there's nothing. So there's a tree, this rolled and nothing. These ones rolled flowers, flower, tree, flower, 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 tree, nothing. Then tree. No? So now our world is way more lively. There is a lot of trees and a lot of flowers. We need to like increase the gap. So if I go again, every time we go, now we have an extra element of randomness, right? Our world is way prettier, way more populated. And you can use the exact same principle for everything. Like on our caves, you could do, okay, every time you create a tile, you create a checker right on top. And then at the end, you say, hey, is the checker colliding with anything? No, then there's a chance for you to create something on top. And to make the chance, all you got to do is increase this stuff. So, for example, we could make it, so instead of randomized between 1 and 3, it can be randomized between 1 and, let's say, 5. And now I'm gonna copy these ones. CV. There we go. And I'm gonna paste number 1 twice. And I'm gonna change this one to 4 and this one to 5. So if it's 1, 4, or 5, it's gonna just delete the checker. But if it rolls a 3 or a 4, it's gonna spawn something. So now the world is gonna be less populated. There you go. It still has stuff, as you can tell. Still has trees and has flowers and so on, but there isn't like a whole bunch of them like before, right? It's still populated, and you can just adjust these to taste. And every time we generate the world, we get a completely different result. And that was it. I mean, from here on, I've shown you all the basics, shown you how to create the hardest part, which is the world and the grid that goes along with it. Now with this, you're able to generate anything you want. All you got to do now is an inventory system. For example, you can make it so that when you click a tile, you take away HP, and when the HP equals 0, then it breaks. And when it breaks, it gives you a tile. And now with that tile that you have, now you can place one, right? So now we have one, I can place one there. And you can also make it so that when the mouse is in collision with the grid, but the grid isn't in collision with anything else, right? You can do so much with this. Like the hardest part is generating the world, right? And in figuring out how stuff goes on top of the world and all that. And I've already shown you the hardest part. Okay? So from here on out, you can do everything else yourself. Everything else from this point onwards is just normal platformer stuff. How to spawn enemies, how to spawn treasures, all that stuff. That's just basic stuff from now on. Okay? The generation, the procedural generation, that was the hardest bit, and here you go. You did it. If you got to this point, if you follow along, you have the beginnings of an awesome game, right? I'm going to be building a game based off this. You could follow along. So far, it's called Craft Knight. He has a drill for breaking stuff. And I'm going to be using the exact same principles I just showed you. It's going to be everything the same, and if you follow along, and if you watch the devlogs and you see something cool that you're like, man, how do I put that in my game? How do you do that? You just let me know, and I'll come back to this, and I'll try adding it in, or I'll make a completely different thing about it, right? But so far, this is how to make the basics of a procedurally generated world in the style of Minecraft, right? I mean, this is basically Minecraft. This is 1.0 Minecraft, right? Minus the crafting. But, the crafting, you can do that in other games. I'm sure there's plenty of guides out there. I'll probably make a guide later on when I get to that bit. But there isn't a whole lot to that. It's like making a shop. You need to make sure that, hey, do you have this variable and this variable? Then you create this one, right? Nothing too much to it. Anyways, that was it. We got to the end. This was the last episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you feel like I should have explained something else, or if there's anything missing, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, leave a like, all that jazz. Watch the description, consider supporting. Any and all help is appreciated. Until then, I hope you have a good time and a good day and a good life and all that jazz, right? Catch you guys on the next video. Till then, peace out.